Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Digital Gate Studios production. I've got Justin here with his debut deck profile. Justin, what do you got?
I got Imperial Digimon. It's kind of surprising how long it took me to get a deck list on the channel, but it's fitting that it's my favorite deck of all time, I think. And it got a little bit better. And we can start it off with some of the new cards, kind of going in a reverse order because these are the new cards and they're the most interesting. First, we got the Ukkomon promos. This card is, at first glance, it seems unassuming, but this card is amazing. It has free in name, so it's searchable by every single searcher in the deck, which is ridiculous already. And for those that don't know, its effect sees itself when it comes out of raising. So if you play it in the back and then you raise it next turn, you'll get the memory and you'll be able to hatch an egg. It's an amazing card, and the more you play with it, you'll be very surprised with how much advantage it gives you and how much pressure it puts on your opponent.
When we saw this card, our immediate thought was, I wonder how many decks could play it, because it's one of the only white cards that Evo's in the back, but it can also Evo on any egg. So the obvious choice is this Imperial Digimon list.
Yeah, and pairing with that, with the Ukkomon, we got Louis. This card, also very unassuming at the start, until you play with it more and you realize, man, you get a lot of raising phases with the Ukkomon. It's an extra point of damage if you have a rookie in the back. So if you were short on damage on your Imperial turn, or rather your Paledramon turn, you can Louis and raise a rookie, and it works the same way as the Mimi from, what BT is it again?
BT1 Mimi.
Yeah, and it's another point of damage. On top of it, multiple copies means more damage, and you actually do have the memory to play all of it. So Louis, amazing card once again.
It's also worth noting that if you turn 1 Evo Ukkomon and then pay Louis for 3, you're going to promote the Ukkomon. The Ukkomon's going to activate to gain a memory and hatch an egg, and then Louis, you can suspend him to gain another memory. So it's a 1 Evo turn 1.
Yeah, and this is not just for this deck too. It can go in every single rookie rush strategy you can think of. But moving on to the rookies, something you'll see with a lot of the Ukkomon lists that will probably start showing up is you have to play 5 eggs.
Yeah.
So we'll start with the 4s. We got 4 of the Wanyamon for BT11. This card is interesting because we were tinkering around with the eggs a lot. At first, it's like, oh, you're playing Imperial, why don't you just play the Demi-Vmon? But then you realize the Ukkomon can never get evolved over, so you can never give it jamming. And this deck runs out of cards in hand really fast if you don't have a Paledramon stack that can swing and draw you 5-6 cards in a turn. So Wanyamon helps a lot because we are playing a Blue Tamer, which we'll get into later. And the last egg is the BT3 Demi-Vmon. Same idea. You just need another egg to draw a card, and this is kind of the most fitting, I guess.
The only time the Demi-V is better than the Ukkomon is when we're in XV and we don't have a Davis, but most of the time it should be fine.
Yeah, and you'll see later on that the Davis isn't very hard to get on the board.
We're getting Davis most of the time.
And going back to the rookie lineup, we have the new Promo Vmon. This card, when it first came out, I saw it, I'm like, wow, Imperial Digimon and Armor Rush get a lot better with this card. It says as long as you have a Tamer, so it doesn't specify Blue Tamer, which is interesting because Louis will count for the effect. You can evolve onto it with a free card in name with a reduction of 1. And its inherited says if you have 2 or more colors, draw a card, not once per turn when attacking. So you have another Stingmon basically underneath your Paledramon stack. And this card generates you a lot of value. You'll basically see your entire deck if you get a stack with the Vmon and the Stingmon. And otherwise, this card is really, really good. Just another good addition to the deck that it kind of needed. Going on to the next rookie, we have BT12 Vmon. Kind of can't get away from this card. It's just really good. It's a searcher.
The best searcher in the deck.
Yeah, it searches free, it searches Davis. It can DNA end of turn, so there's going to be times where you can't necessarily make an entire stack and DNA on the same turn. And there's a pesky 6k body, but with its end of turn effect, it's really good. Comes up sometimes, not all the time, but more so if you're playing the BT12 XV and the BT12 Stingmon, the one that gives you memory when you DNA. But doesn't really come up, and those cards aren't as good as some of the other ones.
True.
And the next rookie, the Power Crept Vmon.
The old structure deck.
This card is good, just not as good as the BT12 Vmon, but you play it because it's a Vmon in name and it searches a free, so it can grab you the Ukkomon, grabs you any of your pieces in the deck, which is good. You run out of cards really, really fast because you're evolving your rookies in the back and you're going to be playing them a lot with the card we'll talk about in the future. But just to refill your hand, find your pieces, and do your line. And lastly, we got, for the rookies, we got 2 EX2 Labramons. Can't get away from this card. With the old EX1.
It's one of the only non-freeze in the deck.
Yeah, so it does get a little bit awkward with one of the tamers you'll see later. But if you have jamming when attacking, gain a memory. So you can evolve onto it with XV, swing for a memory, make a Paildramon, and then swing again because it's an entirely new stack. So it nets you some memory, and it kind of works well with another level 4 we'll talk about later. Speaking of which, we got EX1 XVmon. This card, again, it's
the best. It's the best XV.
They can't seem to power creep this card. They've printed like 6 of these guys, and none of them are as good as this one. Has jamming when attacking, and it gives jamming to anything with free or Imperialdramon in its name. This card's just really good. Gets you damage. It's a free chip, a point of damage before you make your Paildramon stack, and it gives your Paildramon stack protection because it's only like 8K. So definitely a 4 of. Need it in the deck. And we got his brother that we can't seem to power creep either. We got starter deck 9 Stingmon. When you play from your hand, if you have a blue Digimon, it costs 3 instead of 4. So you theoretically need 5 memory, 4 if you're evolving the XV over this Vmon, but you need 4 memory to go into the Paildramon. And once you do, it's when attacking is draw a card if you have a blue Digimon in play. So you end up cycling a lot of cards because, like the promo Vmon, it's not once per turn. So you draw 6 cards.
Swing twice with the Pail, draw 4 cards.
Yeah. Just a really good card. Can't seem to power creep it. They've printed like 7 copies of this card too. But moving on to the next level 4, we got BT8 Lightramon. Now this card is interesting because usually it's used as like a balance for the amount of blue sources and green sources you have, and that was kind of it. But we're going into a meta where people are having more board presence with the current meta picks. Lugomon spawn things in. A lot of decks want to search now. Like I said, with the Louis and Ukkomon, this deck can fit in anywhere, so I'm expecting to see a lot more of those cards. And Lightramon lets you go up in your stack and deal with the level 4 body, which is interesting, but it was never really the purpose of it. But now it has another purpose. The promo Vmon only gains the card draw when attacking when you're 2 colors. And Lightramon being 2 colors, you can evolve it for 1. You can swing, you can draw a card. If you have a blue tamer, you can draw another. Just another draw engine for the deck and balances out the blue to green ratio. However, we are a bit skewed on the blue ratio because we're running 2 BT12 Lanimons. This card, I can't believe they printed a blue hybrid this good. Swings with jamming, so a lot of the times back then, you would have a really sketchy OTK line where you would have to Lobomon over your tamer, swing with the Lobomon, and pray it lives.
And then DNA with it.
And then DNA into Paildramon, and you didn't have jamming still.
Yeah.
But has some interesting synergy with the rookies. You can Lanimon and then tuck a Labramon underneath it. The Lanimon gains jamming, so we can swing and gain a memory, making the evolution cost effectively 1. You can tuck the promo Vmon, not necessarily to gain anything, but when you go into your DNA, you can draw more cards. So Lanimon, really good. It's a really good finisher. We run 2 of because every search whiffs over it, and you want to see at least 1 per game because it's oftentimes the point for the last swing for lethal.
Yeah, if your lethal isn't Louis Ukkomon, it's probably Lanimon.
For sure. And the titular card of the deck, we have Paildramon, ST6. It's or ST9, excuse me. Can't seem to get away from this one either. A lot of the new printings just doesn't really fit in the strategy with the deck. You really, really want to be going for face a lot of the times. You don't really want to deal with bodies. You don't really want to control the board. You don't really want to stun it.
Strip sources. Doesn't matter. We just want to attack.
Yeah, we just want to swing over and over. Bottom deck's a 6K. Once again, not super relevant in the past metas where they were bringing really big stacks. But in this one, there's a lot more board presence, I would say, and a lot of people are more willing to run floodgates. I think Ukkomon is really important because everyone's running blue training or trainings of some kind, so reducing evolutions is really important. And this just deals with it. It swings 2 times, it draws us a billion cards with Stingmon and Vmon. It's a really, really good card, and I don't see them power creeping this card anytime soon. I say that, but then they released a new Paildramon that's pretty good too. Not sure how good it stacks up to this one.
All right, let's see what kind of dragon modes and fighter modes you have.
I don't got a level 6 for you, but I had a level 7 for you.
That's the top end.
This is the single top end of the deck. It's more of a toolbox card. I think Paildramon, once it loses the board, it can't really fight for it back with anything in the deck.
Especially with this build.
Yeah, especially with this build. We don't run any level 6s. And because of that, it's actually really difficult to deal with certain bodies. Like, you don't really have a way to deal with it outside of spot removal. So Death X clears the wide boards, stops a boss monster's effect, and you will see it because you draw so many cards.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on, we have the Tamers, and we got another new one. We play 4 of the movie Davises. This card, I mean...
They gave Imperial Zenjiro. That's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah.
Why did they do that?
It's not only a Zenjiro, but it plays not just like a level 4 that just sits there and is a blocker. Mm-hmm. It plays a Searcher. And the reason why we're really high up on both of the Searcher Vmons is because you run out of cards. You just simply do. So playing a Vmon to search you another free name or another Davis to play another Davis is really, really good. And I was saying earlier that the Ukkomon and Louis give you a lot of memory advantage, and this card is like no exception. It's a Zenjiro, it passively gains you memory, and the biggest part about this I think people overlook is start of turn, if you have a Digimon with free, gain a memory. It doesn't have to unsuspend, so it's always present for your hybrid. It never has to tap itself, so you never lose a damage. Mm-hmm. And the other on play is that it evolves into an X-Vmon. Doesn't come up too often, but sometimes if you want to be really efficient, if you're at 2 memory, you have a Vmon on the board, you can play a Davis to evolve the Vmon into XV for 3 instead of 2, and then passes the turn at 1. Kind of relevant, but not super, super important.
Usually we're playing out Vmons.
Yeah, for sure. Going on to the options, we have 4 mental trainings. I think you'll be seeing this card in a lot of lists. Any deck really likes the training cards. They're really great at consistency boosting. It lets you do a couple interesting things. Lets you go into Vmon in the back, and then you can play mental training past the turn at 2. And then the next turn evolve into Lytramon, XV, etc. for free. And it makes the Paildramon turn cost 3, basically, if you have a Stingmon in hand. This card is really good. It lets you, also, if you don't have a green source to DNA into your Paildramon, you can evolve your XV into Paildramon still for 2, which is 2 checks. It's still a lot of pressure, and it's a really great consistency card for any deck. I think you can go down to 2 if you really want to play the level 6s. There was a consideration for it. Now, I would look at here kind of for flex spots if you're looking to change the deck. Lastly, we got Megadeth. We got 1 copy of Megadeth. It's a little bit more awkward because you can see it. We don't run any of the Davis Kens, so we oftentimes don't have a green source on the board. It's still really great in security. It's one of the best spot removals in the game. It's really cheap, and there's nothing that can really beat this out in terms of removal for this deck. You could cut another Death X, put another Megadeth, and just run no level 7s. You can cut a mental training for more Megadeths if you'd like, but this is an all gas, go at their face kind of deck. Mm-hmm. And this is like our emergency, hey, I need to kill a body here.
Rookie Rush in its purest form.
Right. And lastly, it's the mandatory good card. Ice Wall is amazing. It stalls you a turn. It's really memory efficient. Stops every single OTK deck without a lot of memory cheating. There's times where the Galgamon player can have 8 memory and still not be able to kill you. You have to swing 8 times or 4 times and you lose 8 memory. And the last time, if you have 5 security, this card is grossly underrated. I can't believe some blue lists don't run it, but this card's really good. And that's the list.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Justin. Let us know in the comments if you want to see more from Justin. We've got a weekly podcast every Friday at 8 a.m. Just let us know in the comments what decks you want to see out of BT14, and we'll see you all in the next one.